the Director of Research and Project for Global Community Resourcing. Global Community Resourcing is a multi-award-winning Australian company which is involved in international and national projects concentrating in community, disability and aged care, where quality, consumer engagement and co-design, service, model redesign and workforces of the future in aged care are paramount. And that's only one of the many, many hats she wears. If I would go through all her roles, there wouldn't be any time left for her to speak. I can tell you she has an incredible amount of experience in community care in a variety of national and international projects and roles. So over to you, Anne, and it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you, Sonia, and I'll just double check that you can hear me okay and that you can also see my screen.
It's perfect.
Excellent. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the efforts that have been put into making these couple of days possible, and particularly to Sonia and Gareth. I don't think it's been without pain trying to get these two events, 2 days of events together, particularly with COVID and the requirements to modify the program. I'm very fortunate. I don't have to wear a mask. I'm in beautiful Condamooka country in southeast Queensland. For those of you who might know the area, bordered by some beautiful islands of Stradbroke Island and the Southern Moreton Bay Islands. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. And I look forward to showcasing some of the work that we've done on their land during my presentations today. I'd also like to acknowledge Georgie Gould, who's worked tirelessly behind the scenes in helping with this presentation. So I've got a little bit of time to go through, and I'm just having problems getting my slide deck to work. Thank you. Hopefully that will correct that technical problem. I'm just going to give a little bit of a background to, I guess, my journey and our journey around Living Labs, and talk a little bit about the current body of work that we're involved in, but particularly the opportunity to make more sustainable solutions via the application of Living Labs. So as Sonia alluded to very generously, I do wear a couple of hats. I do have a day job as Director of Projects and Research for Global Community Resourcing, but I also work 2 days a week, if not more, as the Executive Lead for the Australian Aged Care Industry Technology Council. The Council's just completed some work, research work, where we really honed in on the role that Living Labs could play in better quality and safety for aged and community care providers. But I also chair the Queensland government funded, although national and internationally present, Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative. And really the collaborative was based on principles of Living Lab operations, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the presentation later. But I guess where I come to Living Labs is a real personal interest and passion for quality and standards around service provision. All the work that we do is really based around new service models, enhanced workforce, but also consumers at the forefront, older people, people with disability, marginalised groups, whoever they might be, families, carers, really at the forefront of engaging in the development of services and being in control and more independent in their lives as a result of better fitting service delivery. In our Queensland node, we're going to hear from 2 providers who really excel at this, Ferris Care, and I note Layla and Dawn are on board in this session. And our colleagues from Endeavour Foundation and a national disability provider who's part of our collaborative, doing some fantastic work with their client groups. I've had the privilege to work as Australian rep on a number of standards developments for ISO, APEC and ASEAN networks, and so a lot of that work is based on really co-designing with the very people that those standards impact about. So just in terms of where I guess I found living labs. Early in my career, I was looking for some frameworks and methodologies to really look at how community care services could be transformed. And really it was from that perspective I was really interested in a focus on sustainable, just and resilient services. Early in 2000, I received a grant from the Commonwealth to undertake a national study of Indigenous workforce and introduce some new workforce development criteria. And it was then I really was trying to explore the issue of co-design and how co-design would influence a better outcome, particularly for that project, but also for other projects. We won significant attention to that project because of its co-design aspects. Some 54 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander service were involved in that, and we developed up the first e-mentoring project probably well before the technology allowed the E to really happen. But I also have had the opportunity to explore international practice, and we're involved in several Horizon 2020 projects where underpinning those projects and underpinning that funding is the application of a living lab approach. I guess in Australia we've lagged behind other countries in appreciating and acknowledging the importance that those approaches will have for projects and outcomes in projects. More recently, when time and travel were permitted, we had the opportunity to travel 3 weeks from Geneva to Barcelona, looking at every living lab between Geneva and Barcelona, and to learn the lessons and I guess bring them back to current place. And I guess a number of our projects, including our Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative, that's part of the Australian Living Lab Innovation Network, really are underpinned by the principles of that. So I guess it's with that I'm going to just probably briefly and quickly go through a couple of projects that we're being specifically involved in, and then talk about how we believe that we can go forward and look for greater opportunities. So just by a little bit of background to our Community Care Smart Assistive Technology Collaborative, we engaged nationally with every community care provider in early 2010s to 2014, with some key funding both from the Commonwealth Government and the state government. We explored the issue of how our industry could be better positioned in terms of improving productivity, efficiency and effectiveness through the use of smart technology. And it was through that research that we identified a real gap, and the real gap was really the opportunities to co-design our own futures rather than wait for policy to be handed down that required people to actually do something or change their practice. So it was with that the Queensland Government, in their wisdom, funded us for an international project, not restricted by this state border, to really engage people on the issue of a greater impact and improvement in service delivery. It is with that funding that we were able to build a range of national and statewide roadshows to really talk to the sector about how co-design could influence new service models, new workforce, and greater involvement with their client groups. We now have over 1,600 individuals registered, but we know behind those that there are a number of other people. So we estimate about 2,000 members participate in our activities, and we range our activities across regular spaces to collaborate via promotion of new technologies or new approaches, but also opportunities to work on Living Lab co-design type projects. Current estimation is that we've had about $28 million worth of projects come about because of the collaborative and the projects that have emerged from them. Some of them are clearly on the record now. Others are really commercial in confidence because of, I guess, the competitive nature of service delivery at the moment and people needing to get some market advantage. And those people, rightly so, have invested strongly in those co-design activities. But a couple of projects that we're currently working on that are really Living Lab focused are the ones that you see on the board. We've just finished a large national project with University of Central Queensland and some key partners, including Sonia Padel from Swinburne, where the whole process of co-designing some new futures for people caring for individuals with dementia were really highlighted and produced different approaches. And I guess the co-design methodology employed in that project really set things apart. We're currently working on some very innovative projects as a Queensland government, looking at supporting vulnerable communities during times of emergency. And emergencies very broadly defined, and not only natural emergencies, that those are emergencies and crises that are happening in people's own homes. We're also working on, have worked in conjunction with the Digital Health CRC to scope out the role that Living Labs can play in both enhancing the digital maturity of the sector, but also providing an opportunity for the sector to really hone in on quality and improve quality. A really exciting project that we're working on and that I won't have time to go into is looking at being able to sustain living on island communities. There's some 8,222 islands in Australia, and many of those have some of those have significant populations, and many of those have people who are marginalised in communities, maybe escaped to those islands for a quieter life, but still need some support. And also some of these islands are actually showing high populations of people who are ageing or people with a disability. And it's also our involvement with a number of projects where new and emerging smart technologies have been underpinned. But I guess for us, the real opportunity has sort of been brought upon us a little bit. Some degree of negativity, I guess, in the midst of a Royal Commission, both into aged care and into disability service provision and disability support. Both those commissions have highlighted the importance that Living Labs might play in better and safer and more secure service delivery, but also the role that those approaches might play in actually providing the individuals who need support and care in our communities a better say, a better deal maybe, and a better outcome. And I think it's with that perhaps negative lens that we've had an opportunity to showcase the role that Living Labs can play and promote that opportunity. But significantly, we've worked both with Swinburne Future Self Living Lab, Design Living Lab, Aged and Community Services Australia, the Aged Care Guild, which has now morphed into the Aged Care Reform Network, and our partners in digital health, CRC, to really fully scope and understand the potential of living labs in Australia. And I think this is a pretty much a landmark piece of work that we're hoping that we can go public with the findings soon. So watch this space. But really the importance of this is that we've scoped out and reviewed every living lab across the world that had a significance in our sector, and really looked at the opportunities that this could play out if we looked at really a coordinated effort in Australia. We believe that the potential is great. The Australian Aged Care Industry Technology Council has done some landmark studies into developing a technology roadmap for the Australian aged care industry. We've also done a number of work in regards to really exploring what the evidence is telling us about what works and what can make a significant difference. But we've also just undertaken a large project for the Department of Health at a Commonwealth level, which really explored the issues that we've got in the system and how we might work together with policymakers to improve that. And I think significantly, some of those issues are on the board. I won't cover each of them in the time allowed, but we've got a lot of wasted resources that could be better co-designed. We convene the co-design groups for the Commonwealth, for example, for My Aged Care. However, don't blame us for My Aged Care. We were only brought to the table very late in the development after a lot of lobbying was done to have industry input. There's great opportunities to improve both business processes, but direct service delivery going to individuals. And we're going to work hard in the coming months to showcase and highlight a number of projects that are underpinned by living lab methodology. But we shouldn't be waiting for a crisis like having a Royal Commission to really positively promote the role of living labs. Many of our services are looking acutely at what the opportunities provide. Organisations that are in the leadership here are ones like Ferris Care, who are really seeing significant measurable outcomes for their clients. But we believe we need to be much more organised about this. Living labs have been a bit of a sleeper, I think, in Australia, and we need to have a much more coordinated and strategic campaign to improve their visibility, but also promote the benefits. I think some of the European social policies and economic development policies really significantly have promoted that co-design living lab approach. We've got no similar widespread application in our Australian policy landscape, and I think we perhaps as a group can do more about that. And maybe we need to really identify some key influencers perhaps in our midst who might be able to share our passion of bringing that forward. So I guess the theme of the conference, Building Back Better, gives us real opportunity to also incorporate co-design and living labs in every aspect of the things we do in every day. I guess that there's diversity in our membership and in the interest areas, but I can't think of too many industries where a co-design focus, a living lab methodology approach couldn't be applied and couldn't result in really better product design, service model development, and indeed in all of the project's construction. We really should consider this. So I think there's real opportunities to build back better, not only post-COVID, post the Royal Commission. I'm hoping tomorrow when the Royal Commission into aged care safety and quality is handed down, that we'll be able to do a quick Google search and we'll see Living Labs co-design come up in many of the estimated 2,500 pages of that report. And really what we're all focused on, and I guess have a commitment, is to co-create a real sustainable future. So Sonia, that's it from me. I just I walked through, I guess, how our approach has been, and I'd like to encourage people, if you're not already part of our collaborative, to maybe register and join now and be in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Sonia.
Thanks so much, Anne. Fantastic to see all these collaborations and highly relevant projects, and in particular your enthusiasm and encouragement for the Living Lab approach. And I think I agree that there are massive opportunities for the Australian Living Lab community for, yeah, basically any domain to work together and co-design solutions. So thanks so much. I know we have cut a bit of time from you, Anne, so I would like to give the opportunity to the audience for some questions. And please let me know, we have played around a bit with the audio because obviously it's different if I'm talking here in the room or if we broadcast an online talk into the room. So if for some reason I'm yelling at you all, then let me know, please. Any questions to Anne, please, in the chat? While everyone is thinking, I have a question to you, Anne. I mean, obviously you have a very broad and deep experience in living labs. You pointed out co-design. Is there anything specifically of the living lab approach, maybe besides the co-creation, the co-design, you think is really making a difference?
That's a big one, Sonia. I don't think it's one particular aspect. I think actually applying, you know, the tested model. I guess we apply, I guess the European concepts to our work, and applying all of those, I think, has a significant impact. I can recall when we really didn't, we probably picked out pieces in our projects and applied them, but we didn't really consider the whole approach. So I think for us, it's also, we could actually really measure the difference in quality of our projects over time when we were using parts of the methodology as opposed to all of it. I guess I'm also interested, I didn't mention, but I wear a hat on the board of Regional Development Australia. And I think there's huge economic potential here, particularly in the fields we're interested in, for example, in smart assistive technology, the economic potential to use Living Lab designed to really get both clients really better approaches, better personalised services, better personalised technology, but for Australia to really promote some new industries. And I think that can only be enhanced if you apply a Living Lab methodology through the process. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question there or.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it's an ongoing discussion anyway. I was curious what you were thinking, and yeah, there is thanks for the answer, and there is another question in the chat. First, Amanda had a question, so Amanda first, and then I will read the question from Axel.
Thanks, Sonia, and thanks, Anne. It's always really wonderful to listen to your reflections on your experience. I was struck last night when Rebecca Coford from Child Fund Australia was talking about how, from Child Fund's perspective, running a living lab in the Pacific region had really enabled them to kind of kickstart their policy and advocacy conversation. And listening to you this morning, it strikes me that actually probably what we need is to pitch a living lab to co-design innovation policy in Australia. So I'm just wondering what you might think about that idea.
I think that's great, Amanda comment. I don't think it's coincidental that in the European context that policies around innovation mention and require and promote living lab approaches. It's obvious that if you've got government buy-in and significantly the policy and decision makers appreciate the importance of this approach in getting better outcomes and requiring funding to be proportioned to those people who are also committed to that approach. I do agree. I think there's an absence of a good innovation policy full stop within the current government, and I think some state governments like South Australia are maybe leading the way here in terms of really clearly thinking through the importance of living labs in innovation policy, but also economic development policy. So I think we probably as a network have the potential to work on that and to get some key influences, as I said on the slide, to start advocating or firstly understand and then advocate and promote. So I think great opportunities to do something there. And I think that there are some, certainly at a federal level, there are some politicians who actually do have some interest in this agenda. They probably just haven't been captured and corralled and coerced or collaborated with to actually see some promotion up the line. Great opportunities, I think, particularly this year with a federal election being obviously on the cards soon and maybe sooner rather than later. So yes, I think a political campaign as such would be very valuable. And I think in that presentation Rebecca did yesterday, I've got a particular interest and passion about promoting, as I said in the chat pane, better service delivery from really marginalised groups. And one of those is the 500,000 Australians that are labelled Forgotten Australians, because they are those that through no fault of their own, but maybe a lot of fault of the social and welfare policies of the 50s to the 80s, were in institutional care as children. And I think I'm witnessing firsthand the opportunities and the joy that's brought about when they're actually engaged in co-designing their futures. And for them, many of the models that we've got, particularly in aged and community care, are not suitable. If nothing more, really mirror some of the experiences that they had as children, and no one wants to go back there. We can do it better, but we can't do it better unless we do it with a co-design approach.
Thanks so much, Anne, for your answer and comments on this. We have one last question. This question is from Axel. He thanks you for the presentation and is wondering, in regards to co-design, how do you address the difference, if there is any, between the end user and the people that actually receives the benefits of the outcome?
They're all stakeholders, aren't they? Clearly up front and making sure that you map out who the stakeholders are at the beginning of projects. But I guess our experience is too, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. and during a project, new stakeholders will come forward. And Sonia, you know, that's pretty much the case, I think, in the current project we're working with you on ageing more innovatively or ageing more appropriately on island communities. You know, the stakeholders are diverse there. It's not just older people and their families. It's also all the other elements that you need to work with, the NBN provider, the technology vendor, the local service deliverers. So I guess stakeholder analysis is a big issue for us.
Certainly, and also there's a whole integrated community discussion comes to my mind there, where really everyone has to work together and see where the needs and benefits are within the community.
And it's about partnership, isn't it? That multifaceted partnership. You know, government needs at all levels needs to be at the table, along with individuals, along with other key service entities. But I guess we also see the real reflection that we need co-design happening with technology vendors, for example. And it's only really been in recent years that we've had interest from technology developers to be at the table. We get lots of, certainly at the Aged Care Industry Technology Council, we get lots of vendors who come to the table with new products. And really the weeding out of those is pretty simple. Ask if they're co-designed. And we'll engage with them more. If they're not co-designed, you know that it's pretty assured that it's not going to be a really good, suitable product.